Hello, everyone. Today on In Focus by Seven Wonders, we have Mike Welts from Wasabi Technologies, the CMO. Thanks so much for joining, Mike.
Thrilled to be a part of this. Congratulations on this great vision. Love the brand that you're wearing over there.
Yes, I'm wearing the. Thank you for calling attention to this. We did a shoot. I want to say 2 or 3 years ago for Wasabi, and there were extra shirts that were shipped to us as part of that shoot, and so I snagged one.
It does bring up, a little bit of a point of contention because I don't remember having any Seven Wonders swag.
Yes, and I thought that might come up, and every time we meet, I say we're going to ship you something, and we always forget. So I just send us your size.
I'm still living off the popcorn bowl from like 4 years ago.
Yeah, yes. Those were a hit.
They were a hit.
Those were a hit. Well, thank you again for joining, Mike. We're really excited to get into it. Really, as an opening, I'd love to just explore your career background and ultimately what led you to Wasabi.
So what drew me to Wasabi? I've been doing this for 35 plus years now. This is my 10th tech startup or turnaround or IPO, whatever the case might be. I got a call from the CEO of what then was called Blue Archive. The co-founders, Jeff and Dave, gave me a call. I was at a Google startup at the time, and they said, we heard that you're a brand builder, and we think we're onto something pretty disruptive to the market. So I came over and talked to him. I liked what I heard, and I said to Dave at the end of a 3-hour interview at his home, I said, hey, Dave, I'm just curious. I've worked with a lot of great CEOs in the tech space, had some great runs, had some failures, etc. But what would make you better? And he said, I build my companies 50% on the technology and 50% on the brand. And I leaned in and I said, okay, sold. I love you. It was it. Because you'll never hear a tech CEO talk about the brand first, right? Or on par with the technology, because tech companies are led by typically technology-driven kind of agendas. His is, we can go out and create a market. We can create mind share, and market share will follow. Competition does it the opposite. Competition says our innovations are going to drive that market share. Well, if we've spent all of our effort building mind share while the engineering team's doing its job on building disruptive technology, we're going to be ahead of the game because we own that industry agenda and that mind share.
What inspired the name? You're the one who named the company Wasabi too, right?
So here's how it all came down. I always look for that opportunity of disruption and the opportunity to create categories. The first play I run is actually sitting down with the IP attorneys, and I listened to the two founders in this case pitch the IP attorneys on what's different. And after about an hour later into the discussion, I raised my hand and I literally said, I'm just curious, Jeff, this thing that we're developing that makes the storage in the cloud as fast as what's on the desktop. Am I accurate? That's what it does, right? He says, yes, it is. I said, would you agree that that's something called active data? He said, yeah, that's absolutely what it is. I said, would you also agree that another word for active data would be called hot data? And he said, yes, it is. I turned to Dave, the CEO. I said, hey, Dave, just curious. This name that we have, Blue Archive, where does that come from? Because that's what the company was called in stealth mode. He says, Mike, blue is my favorite color. Jeff told me we were doing archiving. I'm like, okay, brilliant. Let's, permission to be candid, guys. Can I change the name? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, I don't know what the name is yet, but I can tell you what the category is. I said, Dave, we're not going to be an archiving company. Archiving is yesterday. We're going to be a cloud company. Cloud is the future. He says, you're absolutely right. I said, okay, we're going to invent a new category. It's going to be called hot cloud storage. Let me go to work and figure out a name for that. Hot cloud storage was the category that disrupted the whole cloud storage market, which at that time had been in existence for about 12 years. But this point of kind of intercept allowed us to go in and build an incredible market category that was very disruptive on the technology side, but also led to the fun, creative name Wasabi and the tie into hot cloud storage.
Wow, that's awesome. So Dave and Jeff, and for background for people watching, Dave is the CEO, Jeff is the CTO, and they're co-founders of the company. So you were one of the first 5 people on the team, right, at Wasabi, or first 3 even maybe, and they just let you have free range over the name and they were okay with that?
Well, that kind of goes back to the earlier comment about why I joined the company is, Dave led with this whole vision of like, look, I'm a market and marketing driven CEO. The technology, kind of the rule of thumb is that because of what's called Moore's law in the tech world, every 2 to 3 years, technology evolves and ultimately becomes a feature set of the next generation of product. Most people have that mindset of building their brands and their stories and their go-to-market motion around selling a technology. Dave's like, okay, that's great. Let them do that. We're going to build ours around a great brand. We're going to tell a story like nobody tells. And that's the whole vision. And frankly, that's the whole vision of Seven Wonders as well, right? We tell great stories grounded in this vision that we share as kind of pioneers in our respective industries. And then that we bring it to life through the eyes of our customers. It's why we're such great partners together.
Great
It
tie-in.
is.
We didn't
Yeah.
we didn't plan that one either. So thanks for mentioning that.
It is, as a little background to the viewers, so we discovered Wasabi, which is a data storage, a hot cloud storage provider. We needed secure, compliant data storage for a lot of our early customers, especially in healthcare, who were not cool with folks storing things on Google Drive because of security risk and protocols. And so I think we did an early Google search, just more secure cloud storage or something like that. And Wasabi came up, and I remember, like, I think, Michael, you called like a customer service rep, and he's like, yeah, I'm one of the first 6 employees. Like, we were dealing with like really ground level people.
Back to that first year, it was crazy because I remember sitting as an exec team. There weren't a lot of us, but we were just sitting there saying, so how do we define year one success? And we said, if we could get 100 customers in our first year, we're on to something. Well, we closed out year one with 1,200 customers. Like,
Wow.
okay, we're on to something pretty significant. And truth be known, I mean, honestly, what we do isn't really sexy. It's cloud storage, let's face it. And we only have one product. So it really does come down to great storytelling and telling the stories of how people leverage cloud storage to better their outcomes, to better their business. Again, it's the same product, obviously with software enhancements and things like that, 7 years later. But here we are now with a $1 billion plus valuation with hundreds of thousands of customers, channel partners, everything. If you find the right wedge and you do the right job around positioning and messaging and storytelling, you can absolutely intercept a market and become one of the leaders.
So you talk a lot about brand building through storytelling, which obviously is the main focus of this video podcast. Can you talk a lot about those early days, those early conversations in year one, year two? What was the vision, and how did you want to employ storytelling to get there?
Think about the fact of who we're taking on, literally the 3 largest brands in all of tech. So the only way that we could really compete, aside from clearly a better product, is by telling a story that was differentiated. And so a lot of that comes around the positioning, the messaging I had to come up with. And again, I mean, I still have all this stuff on my whiteboard in my basement at my house from the original days of thinking all this stuff up. But you had to build a message, first of all, that would be easy to adopt and understand. So I invented what is called, and now it's kind of corny, but it's called the Wasabi Peas. Not the kind you eat, but that was the vision point. And the Wasabi Peas stood for price, protection, and performance. And the notion of that is to be able to tell that elevator pitch in literally less than 30 seconds. I can do it in 20 seconds, even less than that. The idea is, price-wise, we're telling a story that was 80% cheaper than the competition. It didn't include egress fees, which is 52% of storing your data in the cloud. The cost is associated with just trying to get access to your data through egress fees. That's price. Performance, we came out of the gate 6 times faster than Amazon. Okay, that makes sense. You're saving money, you're faster. And, oh, by the way, on the protection stuff, it's safer through immutability than anything you can buy on the market. Those are three pretty compelling storylines that can scale and not only through our partners, our channels, everything else, but to the customer, like, I get it. So then you start to think about storytelling. How do I tell that story? A very large healthcare provider came into the boardroom one day and throws down this, no exaggeration, 10-inch high stack of paper. And he says, do you know what that is? And we're like, no, what is that? And he says, that's my monthly bill from Amazon for cloud storage costs. And we said, you got to be kidding. And he says, no. He says, I pay $250,000 a month to have that outsourced just to figure out how to bill that back to each of the departments. And of course, most of that is egress fees. And he looks at us and he says, what would your bill look like? It's kind of like in the old, you guys are way too young, but in the old days, when we used to have phones that had long distance calls,
Yeah, yeah.
right? We used to go through that, and my parents would say, "Oh, who are you calling outside of that area code, Mike?" And he said, "What's your bill look like?" And we said, "How many petabytes are you storing?" He told us. We said, "Multiply that times 699." He says, "Okay." We said, "That's it." He said, "What do you mean?" "That's it. It's that simple." That story, in his case, now becomes a bigger vision about how to tell the story through the eyes of a customer. In his case, it was operational simplicity or overcoming complexity. It was operational savings, CapEx savings as well. There's all kinds of ways to twist this.
The interesting thing to think about too is when you're talking about cloud storage, which is like a hidden cost almost for a lot of these customers, is how do you determine what internal clients are being billed? So like each department is getting billed for what, and you have to hire someone to do that. So it's like crazy compared to, hey, it's just one bill, or you can separate it easily the way Wasabi is. It's so much more cut and dry. So
where we went from that is really to have you folks at Seven Wonders help to start to tell our stories for us. So one of the things we identified right out of the gate was the only way we were going to compete against the big three, if you will, was to tell the world that we're really good and actually the best at one thing. We called it the Just One Thing campaign. Thank you, Seven Wonders. Right? You folks helped us to produce the Just One Thing campaign. The idea was, a relentless pursuit of perfection of becoming the world's best pure play cloud storage provider. And with that story in mind, when you want a multi-cloud environment, when you want a second copy of a cloud or a second cloud to be entered into the picture, which now is, when we started, wasn't necessarily the norm. Now it's kind of actually mandated in industries and companies. We just want to make sure that you're thinking about, I need to have the best cloud storage play, at least as a backup or a second copy. So believe me, we can build a $10 billion business just on second copy of cloud storage. It's crazy how fast this market's growing. And you folks helped us by telling that story about we do one thing better than anybody in the world, and that's all we're ever going to do, which is just cloud storage.
One thing that's been really cool to see you guys do a lot too is these really cool brand partnerships with I know we got to film at Fenway and do some really cool stuff with Liverpool. Can you talk a little bit about that too, like making the brand more known in the public sphere?
So about 3 years ago, Dave came to my office and he said, "Mike, I need you to think bigger. Around here we talk a lot about 10x thinking. Someday, I want not only to store the whole world's data, but I want the whole world to be shareholders of Wasabi. So how are we going to make the world shareholders of Wasabi? How are you going to build a brand? Because most of the world doesn't even understand what cloud is, let alone storage is." So I came up with this idea of going after sports marketing and specifically sponsorship because, first of all, sports in its own right produces a ton of data, a ton of video content, and they have massive storage needs. So, hey, I can play this game and get them to be customers. At the same time, I can tell great stories and leverage their brand. And that's the real answer, which is I'm still a startup. Even at this age, 7 years later, I don't have the massive budgets you might think, given the fact that we show up as often as we do in the consideration funnel against the big three. But what I do really well, and I meaning my team, is incredible at this game, is we leverage the exponential effect of the brands of the partners that we have. We not only sponsor the Red Sox here or the Bruins here, but one across the pond, as they say, Liverpool Football Club. Liverpool Football Club, just as an example, last week they played two big games. Just last week, Manchester United and Real Madrid, two of the biggest brands, actually the three biggest brands in all of that sport globally. In that 1 week alone, those two games outperformed this year's Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl win
Wow.
by a factor of 2x.
Whoa.
We had more people watching those games than watched the Super Bowl. Right? Think about that. In the Super Bowl, I'll spend $8 million for 30 seconds. Meanwhile, I've got the power of their brands every single game going around the world to 1.2 billion followers on average per game. So that gives me exponential reach through their brands. And that has transformed not only the company in terms of us telling our stories with them as customers, customers and their visions, but also the fact that it's the global reach. And if you take the top 5 NFL teams, NBA teams, and MLB teams here in America and combine their total viewership, their total following, it still doesn't equal to what one Liverpool does.
Nuts.
Wow.
Nuts.
That's
It's
why you make
nuts.
those decisions. It's crazy. And I have to tell you, again, yeah, I got a lot of white hair, but I'm still a little kid at heart. The fact that I get to go hang with the cool kids for the first time in my life, I've never been one of those kids, right? Now I'm going around to these soccer games in Singapore or wherever, and I'm throwing the first pitch out at Fenway Park. Who's living a better life than me right now?
That's
Yeah,
so
that's
cool.
awesome.
I was actually in Spain for 2 weeks this past summer, and I saw some people wearing isn't there a Wasabi logo on one of the jerseys or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw that, like live in person. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Wasabi.
It's kind of an infectious draw. People love the word wasabi. The idea of it was universality, right? You can't misspell it. It's 3 syllables. It's a word that everybody knows around the world, and the first word that comes to mind when you say, what do you think of when you say wasabi? They all say, it's hot, right? Okay, I've already got you saying my category right there, hot cloud storage. So it's fun, and you walk by and people, hey, wasabi, that kind of fun stuff. It's crazy how it takes off.
Can you, Mike, talk a little bit about how video has played a role in storytelling? Both things that we've done, but also just more broadly as well.
We talked real early about what are we going to do different than others that can get us attention. And we realized at that time the trend around video and especially the trend of leveraging that video for social play. We've done some incredible campaigns, not only with you folks, but around leveraging video to disrupt and tell our stories in different ways. We did a fun campaign you guys might recall, your viewers might want to look up, called the Nate campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about basically empowering the IT professional who never had a seat at the table, and we called him Nate, and the campaign was called Migrate with Nate. That power of that video, again, that went viral. It was crazy. Video is our way of frankly telling our story in a much more efficient manner, and like I keep saying, telling it through the eyes of our customers, the use case, the product, most often really the story of the vision of the customer and how they embrace it. It's the most powerful vehicle out there, no question whatsoever, and it's so leverageable, especially in the world of social media. If I had to list the top 3 campaigns that we worked on with Seven Wonders and the impact, or I should say the impact of the 3 campaigns that meant the most to us in our partnership here. First one is this whole idea of, as I mentioned earlier, right? We do just one thing. The second one is actually the current campaign that's running right now, which is this mission statement we have about storing the world's data. What you did in that particular video is you told our story through the voice of different countries around the world, right? And literally, the brilliance of that is, like we just said, having the person in Norway say the word wasabi, or the person in Japan, or the person in South America, whoever it is saying the word wasabi. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a unifying experience, and shows our global presence in more than 100 countries. That's, in a large way, the vision of not only what we shared with you, but you actually came up with and expanded upon. The third one is actually where we're at right now as a company, which is part of my personal agenda and how I do marketing strategy, is always driving innovation and owning the innovation agenda for the industry. So knowing that AI has really taken over the world in the last 2 years and represents about 70% of budget spends right now, in terms of there's 70% of companies have AI as their leading agenda
Wow.
in IT spend. It doesn't mean it owns the overall spend, but they have that as one of their leading agenda points. Well, we went out and acquired a company last year to get us into the AI space. But even with that AI technology, we tied it back to how it fit into the media world, into the sports world, and how to literally go out and identify by tagging all that comes through a video, and very quickly, spontaneously searching through that and identifying that tagged video. So suddenly now in our industry, we're seen as this pioneer of leveraging AI in cloud storage. We still only do cloud storage, but AI now is helping you to store more and find and literally breathe new life into content like you've never been able to do.
When I think about Wasabi and I think about the competition too, right? The companies out there. And I think something that Wasabi's done really well from both a video perspective, right? But also just a general perspective is to make the brand really fun, like you're saying. And that comes with the name, that comes with the sponsorships, that comes with, and like this can be technology, healthcare, finance. A lot of these industries that we work with can be very dry sometimes, but the brands that we work with make it really fun. Could you talk to us a little bit about like just things that you've done to make the brand fun and like a great experience for everyone being a part of it?
My way of doing marketing is not a traditional way of doing marketing in tech. In fact, a couple of years ago, there were two different books that featured chapters on my marketing strategies, and both of them talked about that fact, is that I refuse to get deep into the technology because that's my competitive edge. I always have to think about creatively, how do I tell the story to someone that doesn't understand it? And so while my competition focuses on the technology, I focus on the why it matters. And we tell our stories about why it matters, and that's what makes it, a different type of approach. Now, to bring that full circle to your original question, so I don't go build a team of product management and product marketing people and tell our story through their lens. I build a team of creative people. I've got a creative agency sitting here that has the resources of brilliant product marketing people. They leverage them and say, what are you working on over there? How would someone in healthcare look at that? And what's the opportunity for them long term in healthcare? And that creative genius, that creative team sitting around there says, that's what we're going to go with, like an ad agency does. I've built my own agency in here to interpret that technology into something meaningful to customer. And then we choose whether to make it fun or make it serious or whatever. But, the fact that you have a creative team in-house is totally different than most traditional tech companies.
Well, I mean, and that just hit the answer right on the head, I think. I mean, and that says a lot about where you're thinking about the brand and how you think about it too. Because, like, again, when we work with so many of these companies, it's they want to have a certain agenda or do certain things a certain way. And I feel like something that's really refreshing about working with Wasabi and a lot of our other customers too is they're open to a lot of creative ideas, and you guys come to the table with really creative ideas too, which is exciting to collaborate on.
I actually studied journalism, broadcast journalism. I'm a failed anchorman, okay? Couldn't get a real job as an anchorman, so my other degree was in marketing, so I took the marketing side. But so the journalism side always makes me curious about why this matters. The other side, the marketing side, makes it a creative side because I always want to be on the ad agency side.
Yeah.
So I even failed in getting into your world as well, right? So I'm this failure that ended up in tech and put it all together and made it. Let me give you a fun example, and I wish I could take credit for this. This is a true story, and I get reminded of it every day because somebody actually has this on their wall outside my office here. I'm sitting on the floor in my family room, and I'm watching whatever show on TV, and with my dog, by my side, petting him, and all of a sudden my phone starts lighting up. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Something's wrong because it doesn't light up this way at night, so something serious is going on. And the message is like, are you watching TV right now? I'm like, yeah, this is kind of creepy. How do you know that? No. Are you watching Jeopardy right now? No. Why? How did you possibly pull that off? I said, what did I do now? What's going on Jeopardy? They said, we were just a category. We were just an answer on the Jeopardy show.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? And they sent me, a screen. They had taken their camera and taken a picture of their TV, where the question was, or I guess I should say, the answer was this technology company considers itself to be to have created the hot cloud storage category in the marketplace. And then the contestant gets in and, of course, says, what is Wasabi? And I'm like, okay, I'd love to say I thought that up, or any of us thought that up. But the fact that some group of people there at Jeopardy decided to come up with a category about, businesses named after food, and we made the cut.
Gosh.
It tells me that my team was doing the right job on the search engine stuff to make sure that it popped up right off when people said companies and food names.
Wow. That is so
I remember
cool.
seeing that. I didn't see it live, but I remember seeing you guys post about that on socials and thinking, man, they are doing something right. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not that good and I'm not that smart. Okay, it's just that again to your point, your question, Michael. There's a lot of fun things we do that drive a lot of momentum with our partners and our sponsors, including people like yourselves, that frankly bring out the creative stuff that gets things going, right? The studios that we hold at each of these stadiums, we have no right sitting there with, Hall of Fame baseball players and talking about stuff. But we get that opportunity because we had this creative genius thing going on in the team here to say, hey, what if we had our own studio at the ballpark? You never know who could stop by. What if we actually followed and leveraged the following of David Ortiz because we interviewed him? Wow. Okay. How many people does that get us access to? How does that build our brand? It's that kind of stuff that we keep thinking of much differently than, hey, do you know that you could store X amount of exabytes in storage on Wasabi because it's this speed and all that?
I also think it's so interesting because you dominate in those technological categories also, but that's not how you talk about it right away. And a lot of, I know the early video work that we did with you all was, how do we come up with metaphors to illustrate these concepts?
Right.
Like, because no one wants to sit around and listen to an infographic, right?
Right. And again, short vids, right? The fun stuff, you're working on it with us now, right? The fun things that when, again, the IT people love them. They're geeky. They enjoy being, and they're proud of being geeky. They love the funny little videos that we put out there that show, a guy on a trike with a racing beside somebody with a rocket on their back, right?
That is my favorite. That might be favorite commercial we've ever produced. Like, it is so funny.
Yeah,
it is so funny.
And it's simple stuff. You okay? These guys are incredibly fast. I got that in 10 seconds. Move on.
Yeah.
What's next? And I want to be associated with companies. I'm hoping customers want to be associated with companies like that. At the very least, you make it memorable.
What advice do you have for maybe brands that are struggling to convey their message, or that want to control that conversation on digital channels and just about their brand more broadly?
I have this thing that I reference the All Blacks team. If you look them up, they're world renowned. They literally have the world's largest following of any sports team. Look them up and you'll find something called their leadership principles. I stole a page. Okay, Julie would use the word, I was influenced by them. But I stole a page out of their book and I came up with what I call the 16 marketing mantras. And one of my marketing mantras is one of the things I always tell everybody when they start in my organization, which is have an opinion, right? And that opinion is what you need to have to kind of lead an agenda, your agenda inside the team, for the company, for the industry, for your customers, etc. Create that opinion that gets others thinking, that disruptive opinion that at least gets a reaction. Leverage that opinion into thought leadership. When budgets are tight, even when budgets aren't tight, whenever I start a company, the first thing I do is I think about the earned media strategy. And the earned media strategy is all driven by thought leadership, which is driven by having an opinion, stand for something. Then the next thing that I'd recommend as a result of that is to go through this whole notion of having your customers embrace that exact same vision point and opinion. And now you have, again, like we talked about with the sports teams, now you have an exponential effect. Let those customers share your opinion, make it their vision, share their opinion within their respective markets. Now, instead of me saying it, they're saying it to their colleagues and leading their industry agenda as the visionary in their industry. And then the last thing I would just recommend is back to this notion of, be disruptive in your thinking, right? What could you do differently than that your competition would never think of? What are you doing spending money on sponsorship marketing or sports marketing? Well, again, I have a limited budget. So what I do, I've got, 8x ROI on media spend through my sponsorship teams. I've got millions of impressions that it would cost me, tens of millions of dollars more to get on my own per theater that I'm going into versus leveraging the brands and the reach of their brands. Think disruptive. You don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. Be disruptive in the way you go about approaching the market.
It's interesting you mentioned thought leadership. Literally the reason we're on the podcast today. Thought leadership.
It's literally the foundation of everything. Mm-hmm. If it isn't, then you're already behind.
Well, you've built something amazing, clearly.
Thank you. Likewise. Back at you guys. Your footprint's growing almost as fast as ours.
The last question I have, Mike, is with whatever you're allowed to share, what's on the horizon for Wasabi and what folks should be looking forward to in the new year?
Well, more creative storytelling is one. Thanks to people like yourselves being our partners. What's on the horizon? Well, it better be exponential growth, or you won't be talking to me again. The stakes go up. It's not easy scaling to this degree now, right? We're like I said, we're multi-billion valuation company now. We have a lot of people looking at us, and it's not just I don't mean just in a bad sense, just customers. It's partners, very large brand partners that are now putting their brand and reputations on Wasabi. The whole notion of powered by Wasabi. How cool is it that some of the biggest tech brands, other than the big three, are looking at us and saying, hey, look, we don't want to private label you. We want to be powered by Wasabi because you guys have built a brand in the cloud. We want to be part of the cloud world too. Let's leverage your brand. How cool is that? What a great compliment to what this business is, but also to their vision and recognizing that they can present themselves like a hyperscaler by embracing us as a partner. So you're going to see a lot of growth on that front from those big brands and partners, a lot of big customers. If I do my job better, we're going to do a lot more customer storytelling. One thing that comes with this kind of growth is the sense of risk goes away, and people are more willing to put their brands with your brand. So that's where, in a big way, I hope to work with you folks to tell the stories of the bigger brands of our customers. And then I guess the last thing would just be growth, global growth and scale. We're already in over 100 countries, a lot more coming this year. We've just opened up our 15th data center. Who knew way back when? It's just, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of cool. It's the best thing about this job is that it's not work. It ends too soon. Every day ends too soon, and I'm not making it up. It's genuinely the way you feel at this company. Maybe this is something that I would suggest, if you don't have it in your marketing team, in your company, maybe in your marketing team you should think about. And it's not specific to marketing at all, but we came up with this thing as a mantra to drive the business and to scale the business in a cultural way that represents the founding team when we started this thing. So in the spirit of Wasabi, and of course in the spirit of being corny, we took and came up with the acronym HOT, H-O-T. And it stands for humility, ownership, and togetherness. And I don't care how big we get, we're never too big for the person on the other side of the table or on the other side of the screen. That's how we treat our customers. That's how we treat our partners. It's how we treat our employees, right? I mean, we're just who we are. And that makes it a fun place to work culturally, right? It's humble, practice humility, ownership, accountability. The bigger we get, the more pressure on us. Be accountable, step up, be responsible. And the last thing is kind of along that line, togetherness, right? We do this as a team, right? You know, when we get on a call with you folks to work out our strategy and where we're trying to go on our vision, our message and everything, that's teamwork. That isn't me dictating or our team dictating to you. You guys are the experts. You take us to the next level. That only happens as a result of togetherness. So, you know, as kind of corny as it is, take a step back and just think about your values and begin there. And then work your way up into all these other things we talked about today. But it really does start, the core of the business starts with your values. Our values are those three things.
I mean, I can't tell you of everyone that we work with on our team, everyone always sings Wasabi's praises. They're always like, Wasabi, they're just good people. So, yeah.
That means more than the success, honestly. It's you know, you want to always be able to look yourself in the mirror and go home at the end of the day and be proud of what you do and be proud of the people you work with. And that includes your partners and your customers. That goes back to you two guys. You know, it all began with you guys. You came to us, gave us a chance as a customer, and vice versa. We said, hey, why not? Let's try them. They took a shot on us. You guys were brand new in the market. We said, okay, let's do this together and see what it comes up with. And here we are, literally 7 years later. We're both growing up. We both got our own brands. And, you know, frankly, it's only going to get better. It really is because of what we built. Let's leverage it as partners and do great things together.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very grateful for this partnership.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Same here. We're grateful too, Mike. Thank
Very
you.
grateful.
And thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, guys.